This morning on our continuing series, Forever Young, A Guide to Life After 50, estate planning. Deciding on how your estate should be settled after you die is something most of us don't want to think about, but if you don't plan ahead, your loved ones may end up inheriting a headache. Attorney Barbara Kate Repa is a writer and editor at Nolo.com, a self-help legal publisher. Barbara, good morning.
Good morning.
What causes most of the squabbles that happen after someone dies?
Mostly it's because people haven't taken stock of their property. They don't know what they own, and they haven't given consideration to who they want to get that property after they die.
It's amazing that 70% of people die without leaving a will.
That is a big number. I think people are afraid. There's a superstition around will making. They think if they write a will, they'll actually tip over dead the next day.
All right, let's talk about some advice for parents especially. You mentioned taking stock of what you have, and that may involve getting rid of some of the stuff while you're still alive, right?
You're right. You might look around and decide you need just one Cuisinart and you're going to donate the other four, or give one to the neighbor, or give some to your children while you're alive. So taking stock is a good way to not only clean up the house, but you can also figure out what property you feel special about, what property is that you want to give to a particular person.
Also, when it comes to writing a will, is that something you have to sit down with a lawyer to formally draw up, or can you just do it yourself?
Well, you can do it yourself, and I think it's important to keep in mind, though, that you have to do the good hard work, whether you go to a lawyer in the long run or not. Writing a will really involves taking stock of your property and deciding what people, what charities you want to get that property. So no lawyer can do that for you.
You also recommend attaching a letter to the will. Why is that?
I think that's especially important if you are giving more property to one child than another, for example. Write a heartfelt letter that says, you know, John, I gave you twice as much property as Sally because I helped Sally through school during her lifetime. And that's a good way to ward off fights after death, because, you know, nobody's going to challenge that kind of letter that speaks so loudly from the grave.
Yeah, it does carry an awful lot of weight. Have a meeting to discuss your wishes before the fact. Help to ward off a lot of these problems.
It's very true, not only the will and the letter and the taking stock, but after you have that plan in place, it's essential, if you can do it, to sit down with your family members and say, this is what I wanted to happen, this is what I want to happen, and I feel strongly about that. I hope you all respect my wishes. That goes a long way in warding out fights after death.
How do you know if you need a lawyer to help you coordinate all this?
Well, you might if you just feel befuddled, or if you have a particularly large estate, if you own a lot of property and you're concerned about estate taxes taking a chunk of your property. That kicks in for an individual if you own over $650,000, or for couples after $1.3 million, but that rate increases every year. Again, just have a lawyer look over your documents if you feel any kind of trepidation.
And the way property values have been increasing, a lot of houses are worth $650,000 now. People might not think they have that much money, but they might in their home.
That's true, but a lot of people are not concerned so much about estate taxes kicking in. An amazing number of people think, well, I'm more concerned about somebody getting Grandpa's watch than I care about the state coming in and taking a chunk of the taxes. So it's usually the personal stuff that's more of the quibbles, yeah.
All right, let's talk about the children and some tips for them. It's such a sensitive subject to raise. If your parents haven't raised it with you, should you as the child, the adult child, take it upon yourself to bring it up?
It's surprising how many people feel just intensely relieved when they do have that death talk. So it's a good idea, if it's at all possible, to sit down with your parents and have that talk. There's an easy way to bring up the topic all the time. There's a tornado, there's a hurricane, there's an earthquake. These people didn't get the chance to prepare for death, but, you know, Mom, Dad, we're interested in knowing what you want to happen, not only to your property, but do you care about your death plans? Do you want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? Those kinds of wishes can get a big load off people's minds if you actually have the talk.
So your advice to the children is go ahead and have that family meeting. Decide how to divide up the property. That sounds tricky. How do you decide?
Well, if there's not a will, it's particularly tricky. And again, I think people do quibble and squabble more over items that have sentimental value, the family cookie jar, the family photo album. And I think then you're just tied into what you got, your own creative kind of solutions to those things. Sometimes children are able to sit around together in a room and say, I care most about these 5 things, and I care most about these 5 things. You might go around the room and each get a chance at picking that one thing that you want from the family estate. And you know, some people make it a game that way.
It sounds like there's a fine line between speaking up and just being kind of cold and greedy sounding about what you want from the old house.
Well, there is. It's important to keep in mind it's not your stuff. So if there is, that's why the wills can go a long way in warding off these kind of fights, because if people have particular wishes, write them down. You can do away with these kind of squabbles after death.
All right, Barbara Kate Repa, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And if you'd like more information on this topic, you can visit our website at today.msnbc.com. This is Today on NBC.